It's now my privilege to introduce to you the Honorable Arthur Rusch and his lovely wife Lana, USD class of 1968, 1969, graduate of the Knutson School of Law, 1971. He has served the South Dakota Senate for Clay and Turner counties, retired circuit court judge, and currently consults in rights. So please, a nice ovation for Art and Lana.
Thank you, Father. This is my wife Lana with me. We are graduates of USD and alumni of the Newman Center. We're more than that, though. We were married at the Newman Center 55 years ago. In December of 1969 by Monsignor Doyle, although I think he was just a father at that time. Anyway, so we have a very close connection and ties to the Newman Center. We've stayed in Vermilion pretty much ever since then and raised 4 children here in Vermilion. I'm going to let my wife tell you about her connections, but I want to tell you about mine. Actually, when we were married, we had both graduated from undergraduate, and my wife was a graduate student, and I was a law student at that time in 1969. But I had come to go to undergraduate in 1964. And as they talked, the Newman Center was done in 1964, but it wasn't done yet. In the fall of 1964, when I came as a freshman here, there was, but the Newman Club that they had invited all of the Catholic students to a dinner, but there wasn't room at the Newman Center because it wasn't done. So we had to go to St. Agnes School, which I think was brand new at that time, and that part of Vermilion hadn't been developed yet, and so we got a carload of guys that had graduated from Yankton High School with me. In fact, I think all of them had graduated from Sacred Heart Grade School with me. And we got in a car and we wound through cornfields, and we finally did find the St. Agnes School there for the dinner there, but it was a little bit difficult to do that. But the Newman Center really was a very centered part of my life as a student here, particularly as a freshman. I spent a lot of time there, and really felt that it did a lot. The campus was a lot different then. The football field was right across the highway there south of the Newman Center. The open air football field, what was the Coyote Student Center that had been replaced since then by the Muck, was under construction that year, so the campus was a lot different. But the Newman Center really helped me to stay focused and centered on my religious life during that year, particularly of my freshman.
One of the advantages of being retired is having time to think back and reflect on our life journey. And when Father Rutten asked us to speak, I spent a lot of time thinking about all the experiences I had at the Newman Center, and I became to realize that it had more of an impact on my life than I had realized. Art and I started dating in college, and after we had been dating for a while, I started attending Mass at the Newman Center with him. I was a Lutheran girl from Sioux Falls, and I didn't know what to expect at a Catholic Mass. But what I discovered at the Newman Center was excitement, enthusiasm. The Newman Center was still young, just been there a couple of years, and they were still working on finding its role on campus and becoming an important place for Catholic students. The 2 priests at that time were Father Robert Flannery and Father James Doyle, who later became a Monsignor. They were both very young and very enthusiastic. And the students had so much energy, as college students usually do. And it was just a few years after Vatican II. And I think that was significant. The church was evolving and undergoing a lot of changes. And I think many Catholics were uncertain and struggled to figure out how to manage these changes. But the Newman Center embraced the changes. It was just a great place to be at a powerful time in the church's history. It was just palpable that all the energy that was going on there. So as Art said, we got married at the Newman Center. And before we graduated, I did join the church under the guidance of Monsignor Doyle. So we went to Rapid City for a year. Art was a law clerk there. And a year later, we returned to Vermilion. He joined a law firm here, never ever thinking we'd be back in Vermilion. And after a few months, I began working as a secretary at the Newman Center. What a blessing it was to be part of that place again. I worked there for 2.5 years. Finally had to quit when I had my second child. And it was just a wonderful job. Monsignor Doyle was my boss. He was a great boss, and he also became a good friend. He had a tremendous joy and a great love for the church. He loved the students, and he loved the University of South Dakota. So my memories of the Newman Center are really closely tied to him and the memories I had of him. And there were many stories I could tell. And I think you might be hearing some more about him from Father Simple later. But I still have one vivid visual memory of how he frequently signed his name, Father James Michael Doyle, in green ink, because he was so proud to be Irish. Most of the activities at the Newman Center were in the evenings, and I usually was not able to be involved in those. Occasionally, however, there were speakers and special guests. The most notable for me was Dorothy Day. I didn't know much about her at the time, but now I am in such awe that I got to meet her right here in Vermilion. And then there were the students, the whole reason for being. The students that I knew at the Newman Center were the best. I think they were absolutely some of the best people I have ever met in my life. And some of the names I don't remember, and I've lost touch with them, but they were just the best people to be around. And I think that's still true today from my conversations with other people who have been involved in the Newman Center. So my memories of the Newman Center are not so much about the building, as important as that is, and the roof and all the other things. But my memories are of the people that I knew there and helped me on my faith journey. And I would imagine that most of you, that's also the case.